Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin. Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin. Serial tech entrepreneurs. I have had 30 companies, failed at 20, but won big on 10. I recently published a book called Fail Hard, Win Big, which is my story of these 30 ventures and how custom software changed the game for creating entities and differentiation. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We build high-impact software without the corporate BS. And today I am joined by Gary Guseinov, who is a CEO, advisor, investor, board member, security tech leader. Got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Gary, if you would, walk our listeners through the journey of your career.
Absolutely. So I started in direct-to-consumer marketing in the late 90s. I founded a digital marketing firm. Since founding it, sold my interest in 2003. Founded a cybersecurity company called Cyber. I took it from zero to 60 million or close to $100 million actually at the exit in revenues and took it to NASDAQ. And in 2011, I left the company and I started about 4 or 5 different businesses that were all in tech oriented, influencer marketing company, a couple of cybersecurity companies. And then in 2017, I founded Real Defense, which is an acquisition vehicle for consumer privacy and security apps and services. We've done 6 acquisitions, raised over $100 million, very profitable and growing.
That's quite a dynamic background. So that's interesting. You've had a mix of marketing companies and cybersecurity companies. That's an interesting mix. I will say, in my 30 companies I've had, many of those were marketing companies, largely because when I first became an entrepreneur, I had an oh shit moment that I was great at selling, but I had no idea how to market. And so I had to immerse myself in it, which was why I did it. Why that diverse background on your side?
Well, I like marketing. When I entered actually the digital marketing space, I was first building websites in early 90s. We're talking about the birth of the internet and CD-ROMs and video on CD-ROMs, video online. This is, it took us days sometimes to digitize analog video to digital because there was no hardware and software to actually do it efficiently. So I started from then what we realized is that the biggest growth opportunity is generating sales for our clients rather than just building content, which was building websites and CD-ROMs, whatever. And so when we started buying media, we realized that the opportunity really is in clicks and performance media, this is before Google offered pay-per-click advertising. This is before that. Okay. So we're talking about like late 90s.
You sure have a lot of hair on your head and not a lot of grays to have been around in that era.
It's well hidden. So we figured that out, and our clients were Citigroup, Wells Fargo, Sony, Disney, all the big brands. And cybersecurity became obvious to me. I saw the opportunity with privacy. I saw how a lot of marketing companies were not following the rules. I saw how the bad actors were exploiting data, consumer data. And till this day, a lot of this data is still online. A lot of gray operators, if you will, these people who don't really follow the rules, but they're not criminals. And there's a massive opportunity to guard your data. Everything is now digital, your banking, your school, your work. And if you don't protect it, you might be out of a home and out of a job. And so it's the most important thing you can have right now. It's digital security.
So Real Defense, your current company. So tell us more about what you guys focus on.
Absolutely. So Real Defense has 2 distinct components to it. One is we manage consumer brands. Our biggest brand is Aiolo. It's a 20-year-old technology brand that's been around for a while, and we're partnered with many different hardware and device manufacturers to distribute our products. So identity protection, antivirus, products like that, very similar to Norton McAfee. The other part of our business is monetization. And so we go to partners, software companies, and we offer a very small DLL. It's in the form of an SDK, and partners or developers integrate this SDK into their products to generate revenues. And so I can get into more specifics about that. That part is very exciting. Last year, we paid out about $100 million to our partners. This is a revenue share that we generated for our partners. This year, we're on track to do over 150, close to 200 million. Next year, it'll be close to $500 million.
Well, this is a largely software tech show. Tell us, what are you doing there? What are the software companies integrating that is creating this win-win where you're doing these payouts?
So this is very exciting, and let me explain this in as simple as I possibly can. So when you market products to any consumer, I don't care what kind of products you have, you're creating disruption. So if you're sending an email, sending a pop-up message, however you market to consumers, you're creating a friction where you're disrupting what they're doing and you're telling them to stop what they're doing, stop watching a video, stop reading an email, and act on that ad, act on that offer. That's why most people don't act on it. If you look at conversion rates, 90% of the people, 95% of people don't click on ads. Of the ones that click on the ad, a tiny fraction actually transact. Why? Because they don't care about your product. Okay, let's just face it. I don't care what you're selling. Nobody cares. You're trying to disrupt their daily flow, and it's always going to be friction.
Unless you have the right thing at the right time, that's a problem they're trying to solve. You're not going to get their attention.
Absolutely. And so there's not a lot of products out there that are offered at the time of need. Because the only way for the company to know that you need something, they need to be a very sophisticated AI that can predict your actions, right? Or sit inside of your device and know exactly what you're about to do. And so we figured out that there are signals on your device, telemetry data, that point to certain issues that have to be resolved. So in our case, we're only focused on privacy, security, and productivity. We don't sell t-shirts. We don't sell data to anybody. We don't sell anything outside of the spectrum of the product and services I just mentioned. And so we created a very simple platform. The platform is sophisticated, but the application that you'll be integrated is very simple, where we look at certain telemetric signals on your device. So for instance, if you have a computer, there are errors that take place on your computer. There are irregularities or problems that your computer continuously has. Like, I don't care how good your device is, whether it's brand new, you're going to have issues. And those issues can be privacy related, security related, or productivity related, but there are always some issue. And we notify you at the time when an issue takes place with a simple notification that tells you what the issue is. In that process, there's truth. We tell you when the issue is, and we tell you what to do about it. And what to do about it can be either an application you download and install to resolve the issue, turn on an application that's already on your device, or buy an application that you don't have that you need. And so we go to partners that have software on the device and ask them to integrate this application into their apps. So if you are a VPN company, you would integrate this technology into your app. If you are a finance app and your trading app, whatever you have, you would integrate this DLL into your app that will notify users about these specific events. That creates demand when demand is needed. So it's not pushing you to some discount constantly. It's not telling you to buy something. It's telling you there's a problem and there's a way to fix it. Our rule of thumb is this, is that if you have 1 million installs of your software, whether they're paying or not, as long as you have 1 million installs, you can expect at least $2 per user per year in accretive revenue. So if you have 1 million users, you'll make $2 million a year. In year 3, because the revenue compounds, this is annual recurring revenue, it's not one-time revenue, that can turn into $11 million. Your revenue compounds, and then you have new. And so in 3 years, close to 11 million. It's very exciting. And we have the data to back it up. We have one partner doing $70 million in ARR from this exact technology stack that I just explained. We have another one doing 20 million. We just signed a new one that's doing, first year, they're going to do 15 million in ARR. Next year, close to 35. And so these are real numbers. And we have partners that are big and small and all sort of seeing the same results. We can back this up.
So walk me through this further. So you're a big part of Real Defense is you have identity protection, antivirus products. And I could see on those type of products where you're having this, it's identifying an issue and it's popping up with solutions. How does that relate to if it's a finance app or something else not related and not be intrusive to the consumer?
Sure. If you think about, let's just take finance apps for a second, because it's a very logical integration. If you are a bank and you provide an app to your customers, you can secure that app and you can secure anything that happens between that app and your bank. But you can't secure the device. And if the device is not secure, you're subjecting your entire organization to that particular device not being secure. So security meaning, Is it using a secure connection? Is the person behind the app is a human being? Is there an app that's sitting there as a man-in-the-middle attack that's reading all the passwords and usernames and transacting on behalf of the user without their knowledge? There are a lot of risks that can take place on a device, or computer or phone. And so for a financial services application, it's a logical and a natural step is to make sure that that device is secure and to promote products and services that accomplish that. At the same time, you can generate revenue from selling these products and services. We're not saying just be a good citizen and give these things away for free or alert people to things they can't fix on their own. We're saying fully integrate, provide them with alerts, tell them what to do, and charge for it. And consumers, we're not talking about extraordinary expenses here. We're talking about $20, $30, $40 a month. So
do a lot of companies offer something like this? This is the first I've heard of it, but I'm not, in that space. Is this unique to Real Defense? Is this something that a lot of others are offering?
Well, this integration concept that I'm discussing is unique to us. We're the only company doing it the way I explained.
Okay.
You can go and license anyone else's code and figure it out on your own. Like if you went to Norton, you can arguably go to them and say, I want to license your technology. I want to integrate it into my tech stack. How do I do it? And they'll give you a path to get there. But we have a platform for this, and we can give you one of our brands to use. We can use your brand, totally white label it. We can co-brand. We can take the billing for you and pay you once a year, once a month, once a week, once a quarter, or you can build a customer and you keep the money and pay us a respective revenue share. It's a very flexible model with no minimum commitments, not very expensive to integrate. We have partners that integrate within weeks. We have partners that take months to integrate, but it's not a complicated task at all.
Well, fascinating. And that goes, I guess, to your marketing and cybersecurity background for what you're integrating. And that sounds exciting.
It's very exciting. I think we figured something out. I think we cracked the code on how to create demand from consumers that didn't have demand for these products and services, how to create ARR, particularly for companies that don't have it. If you're a banking entity, you're making your money on transaction fees. You don't necessarily make it from recurring revenue. Hardware partners, device manufacturers love this because they're going from selling computers to selling recurring revenue services or SaaS products and services. And it creates more value for them. It creates higher enterprise value if you're a publicly traded company. And so it fits perfectly across the tech and financial stack in any organization.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell us about some other tech projects you're working on.
So most of them are tied to what's called Real Defense Smart Scan technology. So we're building telemetry systems that are very specific to certain categories of cybersecurity. We're building AI infrastructure so that our partners can plug and play into support infrastructures and other AI-enabled environments to make the sales experience and a cybersecurity experience more seamless. We're building a messaging platform that's cross-platform so that companies that don't have a way to message their customers directly through their own application can use our messaging system. We're building a billing platform that's portable so that our partners can tap into it if they don't have their own billing system. And so we're trying to be very much like a Twilio of cybersecurity. You come to us and you take components that you need that you don't have and license them, or the ones you already have, you don't have to license, and generate accretive revenue without spending a lot of money. That's ultimately the goal here.
So, and this is going to be a hard question to answer. Everybody in the tech space is enamored with AI, how to integrate it, how to use it. How do you see AI in the cybersecurity space? Where do you see kind of the most immediate synergies and other ones that will probably take a longer time to come to fruition?
Sure. So the biggest risk in the cybersecurity spectrum is knowing what is what's not AI. Okay, so if you have a threat coming at you, a phone call that you're getting, a text message you're getting, you don't know if that message is coming from a real human being, or the call is coming from a human being, or it's coming from an AI. And so detection technologies are extremely important. There isn't currently there are no standards out there that anyone can follow and say, okay, well, this is definitely AI or this is definitely not AI. And so that's a cat and mouse game, like it's always been with cybersecurity. You're always chasing the bad guy. You're always behind the curve. The bad guys are always ahead. And so that's going to be the biggest challenge. And then with AI, there's no cap on frequency and reach. So if I'm a bad guy, I can build agents that can operate 24 and do bad things all day, all night. And so with humans, you couldn't do that. You have to have staff. You have to have a process. You have to have rules, even for the bad actors. But with AI, they eliminated that need. And so now it's one guy and 5,000 different agents running around creating havoc on the internet. So that's the biggest concern we have. And it's already starting to, phase into, consumer problems. You're seeing more and more identity theft. You're seeing more and more scams, and the scams are huge. They're not a couple $100. They're tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so this is going to be painful. And we're still behind the curve on that.
So Gary, you're a guy that's built multiple companies, taken companies public, done a lot of acquisitions and sales. What would be your view for other founders out there of the good and the bad and the ugly of working with private equity?
Sure. So that's a great question. It's a complicated, there's lots of ways to answer that question. But, and our experience at Real Defense has been fantastic. We partnered with a private equity firm called Corbell Capital out of Brentwood, California. It's a multi-billion-dollar fund. And it's really important to have the right cap table and the interests have to be aligned. So their interests and our interests are aligned. We have a really good breakup of equity structure in terms of who owns what percentage. And so we move things along fairly quickly. Our board meetings are, we're like at the same, going at the same pace. We've got the same guardrails on and we're moving in the same direction. And so we structured it that way. We knew from the beginning that if we're going to have a long-term partner, we have to have the right interest in place and right elements in line. So that's really important. Structure is really important, the cap structure. It's really important to have a predictable business. If you have a business that has recurring revenue and you can tell your investors, like, look, if you invest 10 million here or 5 million here, this is what should happen with, in the next couple of years, you should be able to do that with a very high level of confidence. If you can't predict your business, don't take investors' money. So that's simple. Use your own capital. Because if they're upset because you didn't hit your milestones, you're just going to have a bunch of upset investors. Because your investors they're not your business partners. They're not sitting in your boardrooms or not sitting in a management meeting trying to figure out why, sales came in low or why this person didn't call someone back. Like they're not those people. Financial partners, they gave you money and they expect money back. And so if you can't create that value for them, just don't take their money. It's very simple.
I have a chapter in my book that is specifically around, investors are great, but they're not your partners. They're position holders. And when things are going good, they're going to be your biggest fan. When things are going bad, it's on you. They're not going to work 20 hours a day alongside with you to, work through the problems, figure it out, get it done. I see a lot of founders get too anxious to raise capital or bring in private equity too early, where then they find themselves in an unfavorable position that when the business has to pivot, which as a guy who's been involved in over 30 companies, not one has gone exactly as expected, and it's always about pivoting, that they're not in the right position to pivot and it can end very badly.
Absolutely. And one of the important things is to realize, first of all, when to pull the plug and go home. Okay, there's a point of that companies sometimes reach where you're not getting along with your partners or financing is not coming through. Don't oversell yourself why you should stay. Be pragmatic about those decisions because failing is, you can look at it as failing, but you can also look at it as a start of something new. Depending where you are in your career, depending obviously where your business is, I'm not saying if you have a $10 million business and it's not working out, just go home and stop responding to phone calls. But you have to be mindful of that. So fail fast, make decisions quickly. Second is,
Gary, this almost sounds like, this is, you read my book and it's pre-recorded. It sounds like we're two guys that have a lot of the same scars and bruises. Yeah. And, I'm real big on learning how to use your failures as a superpower is key versus, we're all human. We're allowed to get upset. We're allowed to mope. All right, you get 24 hours, then shake it off and figure out how you're going to learn from it.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually, you should pat yourself on the back if you can decide when to do that, because there are points in time of business that those decisions should be taken, made quickly so you can move on to the next thing. So that's one. I think the other one is that's really important is having alignment within the management team in terms of your expectations and setting those expectations correctly, meaning attainment of goals, KPIs, managing, I have management meetings once every couple of weeks with my top level management and almost on daily basis on specific areas of the business where we track certain KPIs. And so we have very detailed reporting, and we can identify opportunities or problems much earlier in their cycle before they become real big problems. And so with data, you can do that. With AI, you can do that today. And so you have to utilize these tools that are out there and really leverage technology. AI gives you the opportunity to do that. You don't have to be a master in AI. You can just create very small applications that do very specific things. And you don't have to go and hire a bunch of smart people to do that for you. You can just do it yourself. But the challenges are with financing, particularly, is I think companies believe they need financing to grow without really thinking it through. I think financing should be utilized, whether it's private equity, venture capital, when you have a predictable business model and you know that your next step requires capitalization, and you know that the next step that you're going to take is more complicated than you can do on your own. So if you're going to do an acquisition, you're going to build some new tech stack that you don't have experience with, and you want to bring in smarter people and more capital, then you should do it. But if you know how to do those things and you know how to grow your business, even at small scale, try to stay away from outside capital as long as you can and try to do it on your own until you really need the outside capital, because everybody wins that way. You're more predictable. You have more runway. You're taking some money off the table. Your investors are happy. That's one thing I think it's not very obvious to founders and startup operators that when to take the money.
Gary, what's kind of, if you could look back at what's a lesson you wish you would have learned earlier in your career? If you could go back 20 years and tell yourself on, your earlier companies that you've done, and what's kind of a brutal lesson you wish you knew earlier?
It's, maybe not working with certain members of the management team or staff that I don't believe were the right fit for the company, and letting go of them faster. I think that human capital in any organization is your most important piece of your business, the people you work with. Everything else can be replaced. You can finance, you can acquire, you can divest, whatever. But people they're going to make you or break you. And so whether your partners, your employees, you have to be a superstar when it comes to hiring.
What's the key lesson that you had mentioned was really knowing how to hiring. And if you could take a 4-year degree of nothing about how to hire the best people, you think that's one of the best skills?
Absolutely. You have to be an expert at identifying talent and identifying people that are aligned with your perspectives and your directives and your goals. And that's not everyone. It's not your best friends necessarily. It's not necessarily your family members. It's not necessarily even the business people you're the closest to. It might be somebody totally different. And you need to be an expert at those things. You also need to be an expert at when to let go of these people. And so not everyone is perfectly aligned. Sometimes people are aligned in the beginning and they're not aligned in the future. And so if you see the moment where you're directing a certain way and it's not working out, the person is not aligned with you, they're not listening to you, let them go. Maybe they're better suited for another position somewhere else in a different company, and you're better suited with a different person in your management team. And so the faster you realize when to make those decisions, the faster you will become successful. It's that simple.
That is great advice. And Gary, thank you so much for getting uncensored with us today. You truly have had a fascinating career, accomplished some huge feats. Sounds like with Real Defense, that's on track to be one of your largest ventures ever. Good for you for being a doer and somebody who's not letting downfalls get in your way and making it happen. Before we wrap up here, any final no BS advice you have for tech leaders out there and founders who want to scale and thrive?
Just recap what I said earlier. One is know when to take the capital from investors, do it at the right moment, fail fast, move on. and align with the right people and don't align with the ones that are not supporting your cause.
Awesome. Great advice, Gary. Thank you so much. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you liked the show, hit subscribe. If you didn't, well, go ahead and tell your competitors about it. It would probably help them. Remember, fail hard, win big, and build what matters. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.